Okay. Well, welcome. We're now
Okay, I see.
live, right, Katie? Hope so.
Yeah, I'm seeing people come in. Wonderful. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So excited to have everybody. Katie, I know as you're the host, let us know when we think everyone's in and we can get started.
I think I'm going to change the view here and put up actually, no, I'm gonna leave the presentation for a moment. Just let us do introductions and have you kick it off, Kendall.
Okay. Should we go ahead or wait just 1 minute? Are people still coming in?
I think we'll have people trickle in the first few minutes, but I think we should get started.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody. We're so thrilled to have you join us, whether it's morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. We're doing the Realities of Mealtime, hosted by Square Baby and Bébé Foodie. I'm Kendall Glynn. I'm the co-founder and COO of Square Baby. My professional background, I'm a certified genetic counselor and spent years working in perinatal, natal, and neonatal services. I have 3 kiddos, and so mealtime is obviously a hot topic for me as well. Just want to welcome you all again and apologize in advance. I'm getting as a mom life. One of my kids brought a cold home and now I have it. So I appreciate you bearing with me as I probably sound a little congested. So just want to go over how we're going to spend this time together. I'd like to introduce our incredible panel. And we'll spend some time hearing from our 2 founders, Katie and Lucy, in just a minute, and kind of their perspective on mealtime. And then we'll do a nice Q&A roundtable with our panelists, and we'll open it up for questions from all of you, and then do our wrap up and giveaway. And just housekeeping items, please make sure you're muted. I'm not sure if that's an automatic setting on here or not, but and then please look over and please use the comments section. We love to hear from everyone. Feel free to say hello and tell us where you're from. And then you're welcome to put questions in. We'll be monitoring the comments area and we'll try to make sure to get everything answered for you as well. And then we will be sending a recording of this webinar after we're completed today. So you can look back at that as well. Okay, let's get started. Oh good, and I see people popping comments in there. Love it. Thank you, everybody. So excited. I just want to thank all our panelists for taking the time today. We have a great lineup, and I know we're all going to learn a lot about the realities of mealtime. As I say your name and introduce, you can give a wave if you'd like. I'd like to start with Lauren Remendino. Lauren is a language pathologist who specializes in pediatric feeding therapy. She's also a lactation consultant. She is a mom to a 2.5-year-old son with another boy on the way in 3 weeks. Lauren, congratulations. We're so excited.
Thank you.
The awesome craziness continues. Lauren started her career working at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and then moved to Connecticut 2 years ago and started her own private practice, which is called Your Happy Eater, providing in-home pediatric feeding therapy. Thanks for being here, Lauren. Liz Kirkpatrick, give a wave, Liz. We're so excited to have you. Liz is a pediatric feeding therapist, speech language pathologist, founder of the Feeding Academy, and the mom of 2, ages 6 and 4. Again, the craziness continues. She supports families in navigating picky eating with practical, responsive feeding strategies backed by research and real-life experience. Liz shares daily mealtime tips and inspiration on Instagram. You can find her at the Feeding Academy, and writes a weekly Substack newsletter offering realistic support for parents. Liz also provides one-on-one parent coaching to help reduce mealtime stress and raise competent eaters. Love that. Thanks, Liz, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, over to Paige Chapin. Hi, Paige. We just got to
Hello.
meet the little one a minute ago. So excited.
Yes.
So Paige is one of our remarkable moms and Square Baby ambassadors. Paige is a proud military spouse and the incredible mom of two little ones, 3-year-old Owen and 9-month-old Lila, who's currently loving her journey into solids. As a Square Baby ambassador, Paige brings passion and authenticity to every bite-sized milestone. She lives in Virginia with her family, and Paige juggles the unique challenges of military life. Thank you for that, Paige, and to your husband as well, obviously.
Thank you.
Her husband, a Navy helicopter pilot, is often away during meal times, a reality many military families can relate to. But Paige embraces these moments with grace and creativity, making mealtimes special and nourishing, even when flying solo with her kiddos. We all can relate to how challenging that can be. Thank you, Paige, and thank you to your husband for this.
Thank you.
And then last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Robin Mays. Not only is Robin a wife and a mother, she is a social worker, an assistant professor who uses her doctorate in marital and family therapy to teach future MFTs to become wonderful clinicians. She is a mom to 4 little ones, 7-year-old Aurora Rose, 4-year-old Aliyah Bell, 2-year-old Ava Everly, and 9-month-old Ion Bow. Robin is a Bébé Foodie ambassador who loves to cook meals for her kids, and as she is introducing solids to her son. As a Southern California resident, Robin loves the beach and all things Disney. As she soaks up these precious moments with her children, Robin loves to include them in cooking meals and having fun in the kitchen with her family. Robin, thank you so much for being here as well. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Katie, my co-founder from Square Baby, and Lucy Tomei from Bébé Foodie, as our founder's perspective. And ladies, I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about, Katie, we'll start with you, but talk a little bit about why this topic of, the realities around mealtime, why does it matter? What inspired both of the companies, actually, Square Baby and Bébé Foodie, and what we are hoping parents can take away today. So Katie, I'll have you launch in, and then Lucy will have you go next.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks again to our incredible panel. I'm just really excited about today. As a mom of 2 boys that are now 16 with a driver's test tomorrow, wish us luck, and almost 13, I think understanding the realities and underscoring that word reality is so important. As we've seen social media and blogs and all of these things become a really great resource for parents, we also have a lot of conflicting information. We have, all this pressure as moms to feel like we have to do things the right way. What is the right way? Something that works for one family might not work for another. And I think it's just so important to highlight, those realities and how we navigate them, and really to become a community. I think parents do that very well. Moms do that especially well, I think, to share resources and tips and to understand that, we all have different realities. So my background, I'm a registered dietitian, and Square Baby has been a vision, a dream, a crazy passion of mine for 15 years. So I was this nutritionist for Starbucks until 2010, and about 15 years ago, left that job to set out and change the baby food industry. As I cruised the baby food aisle, I found that so many of the meals were fruit heavy and lacked really the quality and nutrition that I was looking for. So we built Square Baby, Kendall and I, that offers veggie forward balanced meals that are lower in fruit sugar. We offer premium proteins like plant-based, as well as egg, animal proteins, yogurt, etc. We're all about following the science, so early allergen introduction is really important to us. We, of course, test for heavy metals, and really just following the recommendations from the Academy of Pediatrics, but delivering these meals in a way that is as close to homemade as possible. So with the colors and the textures of fresh foods for your little ones. So our meals are delivered right to your doorstep. frozen in a compostable cooler box with dry ice. So check us out if you haven't already at squarebaby.com. And we're actually unveiling 4 new meals this week, which has been Kendall's crazy hard work the last several months. So it's a big day.
Thanks,
Great.
Katie. Okay, Lucy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Katie. I mean, you know how much everything that you say resonate with us at Bébé Foodie. On my side, so I'm Lucy. I'm the founder of Bébé Foodie and a mom of 2. I have Alice, who's 2-year-old, and Hugo, who's 5 years old. I have a French accent, as you can hear, but they're both born in the US. So a lot of Bébé Foodie's background was also after, realizing that baby feeding is more complicated than it's supposed to be, because there's a lot of information that comes to you all the time, and it's a little overwhelming. And it's true that I think in France, we have a very different approach. It's a bit more like, I would say, very puree oriented and a bit more like gut trusted. But then here, there's a lot of like, you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to follow this method. And if you do this, it might lead to this or whatever. So it's a little scary when you don't, like, even if you like to cook or if you like food or nutrition in general, it becomes this whole like bigger than it is. And one of the biggest reason I created Bébé Foodie was because I wanted to bring back the fun and kind of just keep this in how to make it, but also make it easier for parents by having all the information into the same place, as well as making them feel good about their decisions and choices, whatever method they choose. So that's where, partnership with Square Baby makes sense, right? Because we want to make sure that we not only offer the right information, so everything that we share is backed by expert. Lauren is one of our dear experts on our board of experts. We have 8 between doctors, so pediatrician, feeding therapists, pediatric dietitian, and also allergists. So we're very proud and happy of all of that panel of experts. But also we want to provide that flexibility, and it means that whatever method you choose, if you feel like cooking, if you don't feel like cooking, if you want to provide store-bought or make everything from scratch and batch cook for the whole week, that's totally fine. It's okay to be those 2 parents, and it's okay to be those 2 parents at the same time within the same person. So it's a lot of like that philosophy that I want to initiate with Bébé Foodie. So we'll just launch our app this year. So it's been about 2 months that we're live. The app is great, and it's really targeting for every parent that are starting solids for now. So whenever you get into that phase around 6 months old, all the way to 18 months, and you have like a whole year of guidance from what to give, how to give it, what other food can you try, tracking all that food, and also finding recipes and inspiration for your everyday life. So yeah, that's all of us.
Fantastic, Lucy. And I love your comment about bringing back the fun, right? Because that is, we want everyone to feel empowered, knowledgeable, and enjoy these moments with our kiddos. So I love that. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's dive right in. I'm so excited. So panelists, we've got a lot of topics to cover, several different questions. I'd like to start with sort of this topic of starting solids. And Paige, I'd like to go to you first.
Okay.
So would love to hear what your biggest fear or challenge was when introducing solids, and how did you navigate that?
Okay, so like I don't remember who, but like someone said previously, I have 2 kids and the approaches have been totally different with both of them. My 3-year-old Owen, he was a boob guy for 18 months, and when I started solids around 6 months, he started off strong, but my biggest challenge was fruits. Like, he loves fruits, still does to this day. He would 100% like eat nothing but fruit if I allowed it. So my biggest challenge was trying to get him to try other things like proteins or vegetables. We're currently working on categorizing fruits and vegetables, and everything is a fruit at the time. So it's a work in progress. But I have really just been trying to get a little more creative. Now we've ventured into the picky territory of 3. So still wanting nothing but fruit, but trying to balance out like, okay, if you want this fruit, you need to maybe eat a cheese stick or something else first. Now my baby, on the other hand, she is loving the solids, and I really do attribute that to Square Baby a lot. Because once again, I was falling down the rabbit hole of the fruits, and you scan the grocery store aisles, and every pouch is something mixed with apple or something mixed with some other kind of fruit. And before I started her on Square Baby, I was heavily relying on the pouches with nothing but the fruit and all that added sugar. But she loves to eat everything. She is not quite as picky as my 3-year-old once was and still is. But she's loving the solid journeys. And I would definitely say just finding a good balance, like a full balanced meal to feed them is the hardest thing, or was the hardest thing for me.
Yeah, I think so many parents can relate to that, Paige, especially, the fruit piece of it. And it sounds like you're doing an excellent job.
Trying.
Trying, yeah. It evolves, doesn't it, as they grow? It definitely evolves.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Robin, I'd like to go over to you. If you could share with us, is there something specific? What's one thing you wish you might have known before starting solids?
Yeah, sorry. So, something I wish I knew before I started solids was it's okay, kind of like what Lucy was saying, it's okay to try everything. I was very fortunate. My mom is a labor and delivery nurse. So when I had my oldest daughter, every time I tried something, I made sure I was with her because I was like, even though I am CPR certified, it's just something about my mom being there. I was so paranoid that she would choke on everything. And so my oldest, we really did not try any solid unless my mom was there. And so something I wish I would have known was just to trust your gut and let your children to experience everything. We were kind of like that no parent that was kind of like, oh, well, this we shouldn't give this one because we don't want her to be allergic to this, or oh, if we give them too much fruit, then they're going to be hyped up on sugar. And so we were very regimented, which now at 7, we're still trying to work on her not being so regimented. And then what we did, if she liked one thing, because we were just so desperate for her to eat, we would constantly give her that one solid because we were like, we just wanted her to eat. We just wanted her to eat. Versus our middle daughter was born during the pandemic. So like, she's my pandemic baby, which we were just kind of like, look, just eat anything. We can't go nowhere. We can't do anything. So you're going to eat what's in this house. We're just going to figure it out. But I would definitely say, I wish I knew that I didn't have to just choose one solid and make her eat that one thing, that I can venture out that she will like different things, that if I model things for her, if I eat this piece of chicken or if I eat this broccoli, she will eat it too. I was like, I just wanted her to just eat, and whatever that one thing she ate, we constantly ate it. So when we moved on to our second, we were just like, just eat everything and just try everything. So I would definitely say not to be so scared. Not everything is going to, not like someone also said, feeding solids isn't scary. It's not a scary thing. It's actually fun. Like we said, bring the fun back into it. So I wish I wasn't so scared.
Yeah. That's a great tip. Thank you for that, Robin. Lauren, do you have any follow on there from your perspective about kind of, pearls of wisdom, a certain thing you wish you knew when starting solids or you'd advise to parents?
Yeah, I think my biggest advice is always to take one day at a time, because it can be overwhelming, it can be scary. I think that not trying to always feel like you have to have the perfect plan in place is really important. I always tell parents, you can change it up. So depending on, I know we're going to talk about different styles of feeding and kind of people's preferences, but if you're doing purees, you can buy from the store, you can make it homemade, whatever's going to make your life easier that day. It's okay to do it. It's just that your baby's getting that experience and that practice. That's the priority. And, the rest will fall into place the more comfortable you get.
Great. Thanks, Lauren.
Can I add one thing to that as well, Kendall?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I resonate with all of this. And I think one thing also I feel is very true, in addition to obviously the overwhelmness of getting in a variety and trying different things, is also the guilt or the pressure in doing things right.
Mm-hmm.
For me, with my first, I made everything from scratch because, it's a first baby. So you kind of have all of those nicely homemade purees. So he had those potatoes, leeks, and, nutmeg type of puree, very carefully balanced meals. But with my second, I was deep into building Bébé Foodie. And I leaned more on store-bought options. And even though it's what I preach to, I couldn't stop but feeling a little guilty about this, that big difference between the two. And honestly, fast forward to today. So my daughter is 2, my son is 5. They're both excellent eater. Of course, they have their preferences. But they all eat with curiosity and joy. And I just wish that more parents knew that it's okay, again, the love of and the sharing a meal and how you're going to bring that meal on the table for your child is really that matter the most, that connection to food versus having all those curated different type of food and putting all of that pressure in following a book of rules, basically.
Yeah. It's such a good point. And it's really easy to get into that guilt mindset, right? Especially as you have multiple children and things change. And I was right there with you, Lucy. Yep. That's such a great point. Liz, I want to just go over, because we talked a little bit. I thought, Paige, your mention of really the fruit, kind of trying to balance all of the fruit. Liz, tell us a little bit, I think picky eating can be really frustrating to parents, and would love to hear a little bit about your perspective on how parents can encourage adventurous eating from the start.
Absolutely. So first of all, I have to say, I wish I had had this webinar when I was starting solids with my first, because I needed to hear a lot of this. And I have obviously my background is as a feeding therapist, and I still needed these reminders. So I hope everyone's getting a lot out of this today. But I wanted to, so picky eating, yes, is very frustrating, especially when you're putting all of this effort into the meals and you still feel like it's a battle. There's a lot of things, though, that we can do to help kind of lay a foundation for that adventurous eating that we all, hope that our children are as they get older. One of them being starting with a variety of textures and flavors early on, right? So don't be afraid to season the food or offer what you're eating, and obviously making it in baby safe form. But exposing to all of those textures and flavors, whether they consume any of it or not, even if they're just playing with it, is really important. Letting babies self-feed whenever possible. This is giving them that control that helps. I mean, even babies can feel kind of pressure when it comes, if you're spoon feeding. And so kind of that helps reduce the pressure and builds confidence around new foods. I guess another thing would be, we don't want to get stuck on purees for too long, right? So we want to move to that soft, chewable texture by around 9 to 10 months, which is usually the time when they develop their pincer grasp. So that is a little bit easier to do. But that is going to really support those oral motor skills and the texture acceptance, so that I find in my practice when babies stay on purees for too long, often they have a difficult time accepting those different textures, and do end up kind of becoming more of a picky eater. And then I think, just keep offering, even if they don't try it, like I said before, or if they make a face, how babies make the adorable face when they, try peas for the first time or something like that, and they look completely disgusted, but it's all new to them. Everything that they're doing in terms of eating is brand new. So we need to make sure that we give them time and we keep offering.
That's great. Thank you, Liz. Kind of on that note, I want to move on to a discussion of, food formats, right? We have purees, as you mentioned, and baby-led weaning. And Liz, would love to hear if you tried baby-led weaning or purees or a mix of both, and what made you choose, either or both for your family.
So I think it's important. There's a lot of confusion around what baby-led weaning is. Oftentimes people think that it is only like whole foods or strips of food, that if you do purees, then you are not doing baby-led weaning. That is very inaccurate. Baby-led weaning is an approach to solid foods that's really emphasizing self-feeding. So I think whether it's baby-led weaning or purees, I think the biggest thing to remember is responsive feeding. So we're going to take the baby's cues, whether they want, the spoon or they don't want the spoon, or, they're done with the meal or they want more. We want to respond to the cues they're giving us. So that's a big piece of baby-led weaning. But I think unlike that traditional kind of spoon feeding that maybe our parents did, baby-led weaning just encourages babies to feed themselves using their hands, or, there's all kinds of spoons these days that are easy for babies to grasp and feed themselves. But I think as with baby-led weaning, you do tend to get more textures and things in. And so that helps with kind of that those chewing and swallowing skills, develops those oral motor skills. That being said, sorry, I just wanted to kind of review that first, because I think there's a lot of confusion over what baby-led weaning even is.
That's so helpful. Thank you for doing that review. Yeah.
Yeah. But I had like a very different experience with both of my kids. My daughter, my first child, I wanted to be team baby-led weaning. And I know Robin said something, you would only do certain foods when your mom was around. I would only do like the strips of food or the larger pieces of food when my husband was home. Because again, I have a background in this. I am CPR certified. I can do all of these things, but I was dealing with postpartum depression and anxiety, and feeding was not fun for me the first go around. I had an overwhelming fear of choking. So when my daughter got that pincer grasp, I was like, woo, okay, we can move on. And, but I definitely felt more comfortable with the purees. Now with my second, totally different story. Like a lot of second children, like his first food was a strip of steak. So I felt more prepared. I was like more regulated when it came to meal times, and just overall way more confident. I think it's important to note that, I had two very different experiences, and both of my children are very adventurous eaters. So I think the biggest piece again is that responsive feeding approach and creating a positive and fun mealtime to support your children in their exploration of food.
Thank you. That's great. And that I know, I wish I had all of this when my kids were at this phase. This is so helpful. Lauren, I want to just kind of dive in a little bit more to the baby-led weaning and purees, and get your perspective on, Liz, that was a great setup, like how you might give parents advice on combining, the different food format, the strips, the bigger pieces with purees? Are there other tips or tricks you might give to families as well, or that you've used for yourself?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think Liz did an amazing job, kind of giving that overview and touched on how important it is, I think, to give different textures. So that's my approach as well. So when people ask about, purees or strips of food, I say, like, give it all. There's no harm. You're going to have, the best experience when you're giving your child a mix of an exposure to different textures, taste, feel, smell, all those sensory aspects as early as possible. Usually children are more willing to try new things when they're like starting out, when they're younger. And even if it's just them exposing by playing with the food, mashing it on their face, maybe not getting too much in their mouth, all of those things really build kind of better acceptance to foods later on as their chewing skills get better. So I think, and like you're asking about different textures within one meal, I think that's great because your baby might have some interest in, let's say, a crunchy texture more than a puree. But as long as they're getting exposed to them frequently, then they're going to be more likely to try them later on. So I always say you can mix it up, whether you're making, you're putting some puree in a bowl or some strips on the tray. You could do it both at the same time. You could do it separately. Like, there's no true formula that you have to follow. I just say, like, keep exposing and trying new ones. And that biggest component, like Liz was saying, is letting them lead. Let them have fun with it. Let them get messy, follow their cues of interest or disinterest. And you'll kind of start to see, wow, my baby's trying a lot more than I thought they would when I give them that opportunity.
That's great. Thanks, Lauren. And before we move on, Paige or Robin, if either of you have a particular, a comment around this topic or a tip for other parents, feel free to chime in. And if not, we can move on to our next topic as well.
I'll just add one more thing.
I love it.
I like to have the unpopular opinion on that topic. Of course, like, all the exposure is great for babies to try. But what I like to add as well, when a parent makes decisions between choosing between baby-led weaning and puree, is also to listen to how they feel in that day, right? For me, there's some days where I just didn't want to have to deal with, like, all of the cleanup and aftermath of a meal. And I think it's also part of, that joy and that time that you spend as a parent in really raising a happy eater, is also listening to yourself and choosing between baby-led weaning and puree in a certain day. And what I mean by puree is spoon feeding is okay, as long as you kind of give a balance between the two. If one day, I don't know, it's a Tuesday night, I think most of us today live in a household where both parents work. You're tired, you probably just want to get on with your day. If you decide to spoon feed your baby that night, but then give enough exposure for them to try and be adventurous on another day or a different meal in the same day, is also okay. And I think also removing that pressure from parents to feel like they have to go outside of their comfort zone all the time is also not a healthy way of approaching the choice of methods. And that's one thing that we really insist at Bébé Foodie on, is, like, listen to yourself. Like everything in life, not everything is black and white. It's a question of balance. And it's a question of listening to how you're feeling in your household that day, that week, that hour, that specific moment of time. And that's also what's going to help creating that great relationship for everyone, right? The parents and the child. Yeah,
it's so true. Remove the pressure, and you don't have to do it the same all the time. I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Paige or Robin, just want to give you an opportunity, or otherwise in a minute, we're going to move on to allergen introduction as well. But if anybody has any last comments here, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I think everyone did an amazing job of kind of breaking down what they did and what works for them, because every child is different and things are going to work differently for each one. I was actually just talking to a friend of mine yesterday. Her son just turned 6 months and he was preemie. So she's really nervous and anxious about starting solids with him. And she just started cereal over the weekend and is kind of like freaking herself out a little bit. But yeah, I think, Lucy, also trusting your gut and going with whatever you feel like for that day is hugely important. I have a bachelor's in child development, and I cannot remember every every like big guy's name. I mean, Montessori is a big one, obviously, but when I had my son, I was like, I am going to be set. Like, I know what I'm doing. And that was the farthest thing from the truth. I had no idea what I was doing, because it's different when it's your own kid. But you have to trust your gut. I am a firm believer in letting your kids be independent from the get-go, whether that's with food or playing, all of the above. So my kids don't have plates. I literally just put things on the tray in front of them, because if I put a plate down, it's going to end up on the floor and make more of a mess for me to clean up anyway. So I do little pieces on the tray in front of them. I've done this for both of my kids now. Yogurt. And, that's, my parents are old fashioned. So they're like, why can you not just give them a spoon? Like, they're making a huge mess. And I'm like, that's how they learn. They are exploring new textures, new flavors. And my daughter, like, just scoops up yogurt with her hand and shoves the whole thing in her face. And she loves it. And, that's what it's about. And I am naturally an anxious person anyway. And I'm trying not to project that onto my kids. So the more times I can let them feed themselves, make that mess, and not rush them and allow them to explore and try new things is what I'm going to do. But also, there are days where I just do not have the brain capacity to let them make that mess. So I can totally resonate with everything that everyone said. And I know I got off on a tangent. That's my mom brain over here.
Love it.
But yes, just yes to everyone and everything that was said. I can relate to all of it and agree with it all.
That's great, Paige. I needed you in my house when I was feeding my little ones. I always felt like I needed to have a plate, and then you're right, it just would go. I don't know.
Like, even the suction cup plates, they don't stick.
Yeah,
they just rip them off.
I love it. Okay, thank you, everybody. So I'd like to move to our next topic, which is a hot topic these days: allergen introduction. Katie, I'm actually, as our registered dietitian here, I wanted to kind of throw it back to you. I'd love for you to give a little bit of an intro about starting allergenic foods, portioning that out, what that looks like, how often. So yeah, love to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And as a passionate co-founder, just like Lucy, who has such great advice and tidbits, I want to go back real quick with the baby-led weaning. I just want to honor and be give a shout out to all of the kind of grace and listen to your instincts and your gut, and understanding that every baby is different. I think for me, I had two very different little ones with different feeding journeys. One who opened his mouth like a little bird for every bite of food I, gave him. And it was this wonderful experience. And the other who, spit out the food for the first 2 weeks. And I found myself in tears every night, wondering what I was doing wrong. So I just think understanding that their readiness, can vary as well. But for me, I have these vivid memories, and actually a really great photo of my youngest with like all of these, all the finger foods in his hair. One looked like an earring. It was all over him, which was so great from that exploring of food, for the pincer grasp, for the curiosity and the joy. And then I always had a little bit of a puree on the side that I could also have him either help spoon feed or me feeding him to make sure he was getting enough into his mouth. So I think this idea that purees and baby-led weaning live together as a variety of textures, right? Just like soups and applesauce and yogurt, and a lot of adult foods have a softer, more pureed texture. So it is an important one to introduce as well. And I anyway, wanted to chat about that real quick. So let's dive into allergen introduction. So this is a topic that is near and dear to us, as we have had an early allergen introduction menu since we launched in 2018. Kendall and I saw the research evolve and new studies come out about early introduction and the importance of veggies early and often too. That's a whole different campaign. Allergens early and often. So I think if I kind of go through some of the key highlights and things to know, always speak to your pediatrician, of course. And if you have a family history of eczema, if your baby has eczema or an egg allergy, those are some specific signs that they are more likely to have other food allergies. So be really mindful to look out for that eczema, especially. That's something you could talk to your pediatrician, your allergist about before introducing allergens. So introducing allergens, so timing. So 4 to 6 months is the key window to start. So it used to be when I had babies a decade and a half ago, the recommendations were do not give your baby a peanut until 3 and milk until 1. And, we had all this fear that for some reason introducing them prior to that would cause some anaphylactic response, but then when they hit a certain birthday age, it was safe. Well, in fact, we found the opposite to be true with recent studies like the LEAP, EAT, and PETITE studies, which are really landmark research around this early introduction science. So it shows that introducing allergens like peanut, eggs, and milk as early as 4 to 6 months, and repeated exposure. So early and often are the two key things. So by often, for example, in the LEAP study, they found that introducing peanuts, so 2 grams of peanut 3 times per week, helped to prevent peanut allergies by up to 80%. So there's continuous research around other allergens, dose levels, et cetera. But this idea of early and often is really, really important. So make sure that you haven't just given your child, your baby, one exposure to this food and thought, we're good to go. And then you kind of put it down for several weeks. It really is important to have that continued exposure to help them kind of build that tolerance. From a dosage perspective, I talked a little bit about, not that we all know exactly what 2 grams of peanut protein looks like, but this idea that you want to gradually introduce the allergen. You can look for companies like Ready Set Food. I always love giving them a shout out because they have done a great job in providing powders that you can mix into purees and things in that specific dosage. But also at Square Baby, we are formulating meals to offer allergens in these smaller amounts, right? So you're not just going to give your baby a whole giant dose of scrambled eggs maybe the first time, or a whole bunch of peanut butter, but instead little taste to start and then gradually increasing them. But thinking about that research around the 2 grams of protein per serving and multiple exposures per week. Another question was about the reactions to look for. And as you can imagine, there are a range of reactions. The more mild or moderate reactions would be a skin reaction like hives or redness or swelling. They can have digestive issues, vomiting, diarrhea, or stomach pain. Some of these things can be really hard to tell between just a stomach bug, right? But respiratory problems, the wheezing and difficulty breathing, that's where it becomes a bit more serious. And of course, anaphylaxis, where they have that difficulty of breathing, throat swelling, sudden drop of blood pressure, they might seem out of it. This is that 911 scenario in which you want to not just call your pediatrician, but call 911 if they're having anaphylactic responses. Something I think that's really important to kind of delineate and to think about, because again, for us that with these older teenager kiddos that weren't doing early allergen introduction because we just knew to delay them until they were 3 years old. Now there's a lot more conversation about early allergen introduction, which is great, but I think it's also causing a lot of fear in parents, which totally makes sense, right? It's a scary thing to think about your little one having an allergic reaction, and we know food allergies are on the rise. And I think what's important is there was a great question on here about should parents do testing prior to allergen introduction recommended? So I want to kind of dive into that one real quick. So it is recommended that infants with a higher risk criteria, so that egg allergy or severe eczema, be considered for preemptive testing before peanut introduction. And the AAP does support this, but it's also, the AAP wants to note that they don't want there to be this sort of this fear that builds up, right? That's not necessary. So testing is not required for all babies, that is for sure. That's not common practice. But if you are in that higher risk category, seek out an allergist or your pediatrician. I think the other thing that is interesting to note about food allergies is that there's never been a fatality on the first ingestion. So as documented by the AAP, right, there's been no fatality on the first ingestion. So this is why that early introduction is so important. So this is in infancy. I'm sorry, I should specify that. So their first ingestion before 12 months of age, but hopefully much earlier, around 4 to 6 months. This is when they're likely to have a more mild or moderate reaction, but not a severe life-threatening reaction. So this is why it is so important, right, to do this early introduction. Okay, I think that's kind of all the things. I realized, Kendall, I sort of took over and just went through all of the questions that I had.
And I know there, as you said, there's a lot around this topic, and I'm so glad we're able to get some of that information out, after these well-documented and very long-term, research studies that show this data. So I thank you, Katie. I love that. And just want to remind everyone, as you're listening to us, please feel free to pop questions in the comment section. And anything we've discussed so far. We're going to move on to parent hacks at mealtime, which I'm super excited. I'm ready for any hacks any of you have for my own kids. But again, I know we've been giving a lot of information. So as you're listening, if you have any questions, just pop them in there and we'll address those. It can be really for anything, whether we've talked about it or not so far. So just with the remaining time we have, want to talk about best hacks all of you have at mealtimes. And I know we're going to all learn a lot. I'm excited. I'm going to take notes. Robin first, and I'd love to hear from a couple of you on this one, but would love to hear your favorite part of mealtime lately, what you're enjoying most, what your kiddos are enjoying most.
Yeah, so my husband is a huge football fan. Poor thing, he's a Bills fan, so it was a rough, and he's a Yankees fan, so it was a rough year last year. Very rough year. Yeah, very, very rough. And being from Southern California, I was kind of like, that World Series is very interesting in our house. So he's always loved when I make wings, because like I said, he's from Buffalo. And so I remember we had our oldest, my mom, I was like, I was eating, and all of a sudden I look, and my mom had gave our oldest like a chicken bone. And I was like, are you crazy? She's like, girl, I did that when you were little, and look at you now, and da-da-da. And little did she know, like, all of my kids, like, they all love chicken. Like, I can't eat them to eat anything, but a chicken, like, chicken bones, like chicken broth, chicken anything, they will eat. So I would definitely say like a hack that worked from my family was giving them a chicken bone, and all of a sudden like that was like a teether, that was like a here. I just need you to be quiet so I can have a couple pieces of my own food. It was like a, hey, dad's watching football right now, so here, eat this to kind of, relax. So our family hack is a
I
chicken.
love that, Robin.
I love it.
The quiet part. For us in France, it's the same thing, but with a baguette.
Yes.
Whoa.
Like, take that, stay occupied while I drink my wine.
Yes, it's
That works for me too. If you ever want to keep me quiet, just give me
I
chicken bone.
have used chicken bones, like for chicken wings and pizza crust. And the pizza crust is a huge hit every time.
Wow, I love this. That's
I think
amazing.
I think there's something like primal about like having a drumstick or something, because when my kids are like kind of off eating chicken, I will make drumsticks for dinner, and then all of a sudden they go nuts for it and love it. I think there's just like something about holding your meat and having it have a handle.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. This is great. I'm totally doing this week, and everyone will stay quiet eating their chicken.
Yes, chicken bone is kind of like the teether. It's kind of like an introducer. It's kind of like a pat. It's like kind of like a binky. It's all in one.
I think the baguette.
The best tip.
Best tip. Lauren, I want to just ask you if you can share a mealtime strategy or a hack that's changed the game for your family.
Sure. So unfortunately right now my toddler, I think, inherited my very big sweet tooth, especially while I'm pregnant. And I think a lot of people experience that when their children get to the age where they, especially around the holidays, like we celebrated Easter, he saw a lot of chocolate. So, he's been asking for a lot of sweets. And I'm definitely the parent that's like, yeah, that's okay in moderation. Like I want him to have exposure to treats, now, but kind of, learn that we have to have other foods too. But what I started to find was, I think the generation of a lot of us, when we were growing up, it was like you always had to eat your dessert first, and then, your dinner first and then your dessert. But what I was finding that he was doing was he was rushing through dinner. He would take 2 bites and then he'd say, all done, time for, chocolate. And he'd like kept asking. So what I started doing, and I think we kind of like as feeding therapists to say, like, don't put any particular food sometimes like on a pedestal, like a dessert. So instead I started giving him dessert at the same time as his meal, and he would often eat it first, but then he would go back to his meal because he realized he was still hungry. So, every night now he gets to pick, we have like a little bag of treats. He gets to pick his piece of chocolate out, and often he'll eat it simultaneously, but then I feel like the meals actually are better because he's not rushing through them trying to just get to the sweets. So that's been our little trick.
Brilliant.
I love that.
I love what you said about not putting a specific food on a pedestal. I mean, I feel like I should have known that a while ago. So that makes complete sense. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. I think that a lot of kids see treats as like the end all be all. And so when you're starting to serve them like regularly, but like with other foods, then it kind of takes that like extra desire away. And it's like, okay, I'm going to be able like to get this. I can eat at the same level as all these other foods. They're kind of all on the same track now.
Yeah, that's great. Liz, I want to go to you because I know this is something that we've gotten questions about. I know I've experienced this personally. I know Katie has as well. When your toddler suddenly refuses a food that they've previously loved, and you're just baffled because it was like, we know that's going to go well. Do you have tips on how we can handle that and really how to handle it without turning mealtime into a battle all of a sudden?
Yeah, I mean, it's so common. It's probably one of the questions I get asked the most is, my child loved all these foods and then all of a sudden they stopped. And so it's very common and totally normal, but equally frustrating. And so I think the key here is to not panic about it, right? Like this kind of refusal is part of their development. And toddlers really have a desire for control and independence, right? And what do we know about toddlers? What can they control? They can control if they go to sleep, like you can't force someone to go to sleep. They can control like their bowel movements and what they eat. And so they take that and run with it. And so instead of kind of turning it into a power struggle, some ways that you can support them is really staying neutral, like avoid making a big deal out of their refusal. So instead of like, but you loved this chicken yesterday, and, just keeping it neutral and saying, it's here if you want some. I always like to make play part of mealtime. I think we know that children learn through play, and so that shouldn't end at the dinner table. Play is welcomed at all times, and I think that's the best way to teach kids about food. And so that's kind of part of that, offering food without the pressure. This shows your child that it's still part of the rotation, whether they eat it or not, and that it's there when they're ready for it. And then I think too, model how you're eating the food, make it, seem really fun. Turn that, broccoli into a paintbrush on your plate and then paint your tongue with it. And, them seeing you enjoy it is going to kind of build that intrinsic motivation that we want them to want to explore different foods as well. And then I think offering choices within limits, right? So I think when a toddler is really needing to have that control, we can offer them choices without saying, what do you want for dinner, right? If chicken and broccoli is on the menu, then it's, would you like to dip your chicken in ketchup or ranch? So you're giving them a little piece of control, but you're setting the boundary still. And I think that a big thing too is to really zoom out, right? So like one meal or even sometimes a few days of refusal of something doesn't mean they're never going to eat it again. Keep offering variety, trust that when you're offering it, that exposure is important, and that will work over time.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I can't believe it. We are coming up on our time. I had so many more questions. I was going to do a rapid fire Q&A with you all, but I don't want to go over. Katie, let me know if there are any other questions that came in that we need to address. Otherwise, I want to make sure we also share the links out for the Square Baby and Bébé Foodie resources. I don't know if we have that on a slide that we can share, or maybe we can put those in the comments. That would be great as well. And then I just want to thank there we go. Thank you. I want to thank our panelists today. Liz, Paige, Lauren, Robin, you all are just fantastic. I've learned so much and really appreciate your time here. Katie and Lucy, thank you for giving us all of the founder perspectives. So helpful. And anyone have final thoughts? Please feel free to share.
I think the last thing we wanted to share also is the giveaway information, Katie.
Yes, that's right. Thank you for the reminder. That's an important part of this. Absolutely. Do we have?
Yeah, so we'll be should I dive in? We're going to be hosting a giveaway on Instagram. So check us out. We'll tag all of the panelists too. So check out details there, and we'll be in touch over email as well. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm so grateful. As Kendall, I think as everyone has mentioned, I wish we would have had more of this support and guidance when we were going through it. But I just think, understanding that we're all doing our best, and to give ourselves grace and to listen to our gut, and that great advice that like one bad meal or one bad day or a few bad days, like it's okay, right? Chicken nuggets and ketchup and some carrot sticks were, made its way onto our plate many nights for dinner. And I think one of my favorite quotes, Lucy, that you said is to to eat with curiosity and joy. And if we can raise little eaters that are curious and enjoy eating, like, we've done it. So I think however you get there and however it works for your family is the right way.
And if you're getting started, definitely rely on resources like the Bébé Foodie app or Square Baby's Purees. We're here to help you. And I think both of our communities, we love to share new contents and blogs and articles and feedbacks from all of our experts, because we're here to help, and we're all in this together.
And thank you for having us. This is such a great community to be a part of. As a therapist, they're constantly asking me, I specialize in breastfeeding, but like, I've had people ask me like, what do I do with food? And I'll tell them, well, from a personal perspective, I can tell you this, but now it's good, because something that you ladies talked about earlier was the misconception of things that are out there. And I get this all the time as a therapist. I'm constantly like, please do not self-diagnose yourself. No, that's not incorrect. No, that's not the correct antidepressant. And so we're constantly battling food, like the misconceptions or the incorrect information. So the main advice I would give to parents is, please contact your pediatrician, contact registered dietitians, because anyone can make anything. Anyone can make a baby food. Anyone can make things, but you have to be qualified. Like, you wouldn't go, like, you want to go to a therapist that is certified in certain things that you need, and you want to do the same for your baby and for your family. So thank you, ladies, for creating this space and creating all these wonderful things for parents to not be so stressed out, because no one created a book on how to be a parent. So we're all in this together, so just thank you for creating this.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. That's so great. I know that's nothing like a parent community. So thank you again, everyone. And so happy to share this time with you all.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.